I'm here today with Jenni Woodhouse. Jenni's a regular member of our 4 p.m. gathering, and she's also the pastoral care manager for CMS in New South Wales and ACT, and has many years of experience of caring for people through hard times. Thanks so much for joining us, Jenni.
It's a pleasure.
Jenni, we're hearing everywhere in the news at the moment that we're in an increasing mental health crisis with COVID. Can you maybe just help us understand what is mental health? And particularly the two most common forms that people struggle with in mental health, anxiety and depression. What's the difference there?
Yeah, sure. Mental health or disorders with mental health can take many forms. And some of those things, we have medication that can help, and counselling, therapy approaches that can help. And some of those things are just what they are. And so the two most common, difficulties that we face at the moment, and have been facing for quite a number of years before COVID hit, and now exponentially increasing, are anxiety, which is probably the most common, and depression. So they're a bit different to each other, although caring for somebody with anxiety is very similar to caring for someone with depression.
Okay. Briefly, what's the difference between anxiety and depression?
Depression is really, it's very complex and complicated. So it used to be thought of as just neurotransmitters not doing what they should be doing. But it's actually in neurotransmitters in the brain that help us take messages through the brain. But yeah, it's a lot more complicated than that. It involves a lot more of a breakdown in mood messages in particular, doing what they should be doing. Anxiety is more like our fight-flight system going off far too often, or even staying in the on position for too long, and so we get quite agitated and fearful and anxious, and we often can't tell the part of our brain deep inside the brain that is involved in the fight-flight system being triggered, actually can't tell the difference between past, present, and future. And so we could be being anxious about things that are in the future, which haven't even happened. Or we could be anxious because our brain keeps being reminded of things in the past. Or we could be rightly anxious about something that's about to happen now, like my neighbour who asked us at 11 p.m. the other night if we could come and help her with a very large spider in a bedroom. Good thing to be anxious about.
Yeah. I really dislike spiders. That's really helpful, Jenni. Thank you so much. We're in this series on praying in the dark, and I think prayer can be really interesting for Christians who are in this experience. For some, it's a real resource and gift, but for others, it's just really hard, especially if you feel like your prayers aren't being answered. I wonder if you have any words of advice or encouragement to Christians who just are finding prayer really hard.
Yeah, it's with depression and anxiety in particular, everything is really hard. It's really hard to be getting the energy to get up out of bed in the morning with depression in particular. Really hard to be, in communication with other people. So depression is characteristically withdrawing from communication, and that means withdrawing from relationship. And prayer is about relationship with God. So it's just really hard to be praying, to be reading the Bible. With anxiety, it's very hard to concentrate, to focus on anything in particular. So it's again very hard. And with anxiety too, people often forget to pray, like not forget, but actually don't think to pray, because your brain is just so busy trying to calculate what's going to happen next in this situation, and which bit should I be worried about, etc., etc. It's very hard to stop and think, I will pray, and then to even know what to pray about, because you feel so silly because I shouldn't be worried about this silly thing, but actually it's real. So it's just very hard. So that's the first thing. If you have somebody who can actually encourage you by praying with you, that is fantastic. Or if you have a friend or someone in the family who might encourage you by just sending you some verses from the Bible, particularly from the Psalms, just every few days, that is a very helpful thing for someone with depression or anxiety.
Thank you. That's really, really helpful. And you touched on this a bit, but I suppose finally, for those of us who have friends and family members who have depression and anxiety, what are some ways we can love and care for them?
Pray for them. Also, have the conversation with them, ask them. You might notice that there's something happening for this person. You might notice a low mood a lot more than normal. You might notice weight gain or weight loss. You might notice the person's agitated or restless. So there are lots of things you can do. You can go to the Beyond Blue website, and there's a whole lot of ways to help someone with depression or anxiety on that website. So I would encourage people to go to that one. But just having the conversation and being encouraging someone to get to a GP are the two things that are very helpful. And there's also counselling, but really you can kind of leave it to a GP to help someone come to realise that counselling may be helpful as well. So that's kind of the heading, the way you're heading. And also the other thing that's helpful is to actually help that person who's suffering from depression or suffering from anxiety to get a bit of a support network around them, maybe 2 or 3 really good friends who will touch base with them every few days, or who they know that they can ring and just talk to, and they won't have to be asked, you know, a million questions or have to pretend that everything's okay. So pray, ask the questions, be brave, have the conversation, encourage them to a GP, go with them, take them to a GP, and gather a little support network around them.
Oh, thanks, Jenni. That's so wise and helpful. We appreciate you sharing with us today. Thank you.
That's a pleasure. Okay. Thanks, Fiona.